Welcome to my latest video looking at how the Prisoner of Azkaban could have been different. I want to thank you all for tuning into this video, and I really appreciate the support that has been shown to me on YouTube so far. So if you haven't already, please subscribe and click the bell icon to keep up to date with my latest videos. Several directors were considered for the position for Prisoner of Azkaban. One of them was actor/director Kenneth Branagh, who appeared in Chamber of Secrets as the character Gilderoy Lockhart. Unfortunately, he passed on the directing role, and other directors were considered. Mexican director Guillermo del Toro, who was considered for earlier Harry Potter films and many of the Harry Potter films to this date, was considered to come on board for The Prisoner of Azkaban. He feels that the films hadn't established a vision that he had from reading the books, so he ultimately passed on the directing role for this one, although he was asked back later. However, because of this, Guillermo del Toro encouraged fellow Mexican director Alfonso Cuaron to take up the directing chair, and Cuaron went on to direct the film. And for me, Prisoner of Azkaban is probably the most well-made of all the Harry Potter films in the franchise. It also said that Mark Foster was considered to direct the film, however he dropped out due to committing to the film Finding Neverland. Chris Columbus, who directed The Philosopher's Stone and Chamber of Secrets, had been considered to direct all the films in the franchise. Having worked back-to-back on the first two films, he decided to bow out and stayed on the film as a producer only. There was some input early on from Chris Columbus at who would be cast in the film. When he was still involved, he wanted Robson Green from Robson and Jerome to play Sirius Black. Eventually we got Gary Oldman cast in the role. Gary Oldman is one of J.K. Rowling's favourite actors, and she is very pleased that an actor of his calibre took on the role of Sirius Black. It is notable to mention, though, that the character of Sirius Black in the book is far younger than he is portrayed in the movie. In the books, Harry Potter's parents were only in their early 20s by the time they were killed by Lord Voldemort. Therefore, Sirius Black, who was the same age as his parents, would only be in his mid-30s by the time The Prisoner of Azkaban takes place. Initially, Professor Flitwick was set to return, just because Alfonso Cuaron was so keen to work with actor Warwick Davis. However, there was nothing for the character of Flitwick to do in the script, but because of Cuaron's persistence to work with Warwick Davis, he gave him the role of the conductor who we see in this film. However, as you may know, this look was adopted for Flitwick at a later date in the next film by director Mike Newell, and in the story's canon, Flitwick kept this appearance for the rest of the films in the franchise. Cuaron also talked about having a scene where a pipe organ is being played by little people bouncing up and down on the keys. However, J.K. Rowling shot this down, saying it didn't make sense in the story's universe. Also, it's worth pointing out that Alfonso Cuaron's design of Hogwarts eventually became the standard. Throughout the first two films, Hogwarts was inconsistent with its design. J.K. Rowling did design the castle and gave the producers and set designers a map of what the school would look like. It was, however, only in The Prisoner of Azkaban where this was mapped out properly and we were presented with the Hogwarts we would get for the rest of the movies. Notably, Hagrid's hut is down the bottom of the hill from the bridge's exit, being overlooked by a sundial. Initially, Cuaron wanted the three main characters to watch Buckbeak's execution from a graveyard. However, Rowling shut this down, saying that the graveyard is not in that position and that it's important. As the graveyard was going to play a major part in future books, it couldn't be incorporated into The Prisoner of Azkaban in this way. Sadly, Richard Harris passed away before production started on The Prisoner of Azkaban, and therefore actors were considered to replace him. Harris's family wanted his good friend Peter O'Toole, fellow Irishman, to play Dumbledore in the movies. Actors Richard Attenborough and Christopher Lee were also considered, but they were deemed too old, and so was Peter O'Toole. The producers didn't want to hire an actor who was too old and they would die before completing filming on the rest of the Harry Potter movies. They did actually initially go for Ian McKellen, who was best known for playing the wizard Gandalf. However, McKellen did turn this down because Harris had expressed disdain for him as an actor. He wasn't a fan of McKellen, and he had said that he was technically brilliant, but lacked passion when it came to acting. So McKellen did decide that it was inappropriate for him to take on this role because of those comments made by Harris.
Voluble and famous was fellow actor Richard Harris, who he lumped you and Derek Jacobi together.
And he said, Kenneth Branagh. I was in good company, yeah.
And you know what he said? these guys are technically brilliant, but passionless.
Yeah, nonsense. And when he died, he played Dumbledore, of course, the wizard. I played the real wizard, but he was...
you were in a different franchise, let's put it that way.
But when they called me up and said, would I be interested in being in the Harry Potter films, they didn't say what part. I worked out what they were thinking, and I couldn't. I couldn't take over the part from an actor who I'd known didn't approve of me.
Eventually, Michael Gambon was cast and would play Dumbledore for the rest of the series. Tilda Swinton was offered the role of Sybil Trelawney, the divination professor, and it was reported at the time that she turned it down because of scheduling conflicts. However, at a later date, she revealed she turned down the role because she was not a fan of the series due to it romanticising boarding schools. Swinton had attended boarding schools and hated the experience and didn't want to contribute to creating a positive attitude towards boarding schools. Also, the Dementors could have looked very different. Initially, Alfonso Cuaron wanted to use puppets rather than CGI. There is footage of them doing screen tests with these puppets and using puppets underwater. However, producers were against this because they didn't feel it was practical on set to shoot this way. They did use the footage shot with puppets as reference in order for the computer-generated effects. However, the Dementors in this film and throughout the further films would be completely CGI. So that's how The Prisoner of Azkaban could have been different. Had you heard of any of these things before? Let me know in the comments below what you thought of The Prisoner of Azkaban, and if you would have liked to have seen these alternate castings. Please leave a like on this video, and thanks for tuning in.